Hi there, my name is Brian Higgins, and I am a friend of farm animals. Now, you can be forgiven for not knowing what that means. Myself, I wouldn't have known what it meant about 2.5, 3 years ago, until I decided to go vegetarian and change the way that I live my life. Having done that, though, it wasn't until about 1.5 years ago that I really realized what the impact was I was having on the animals around me. For my entire life, I'd had pets, ranging from dogs to snakes to rats to rabbits to just about anything. But I'd never really thought about the impact of my life on other animals. Animals I didn't see every day, animals that couldn't sit on my lap, or animals that couldn't crawl into bed with me. It wasn't until I visited Farm Sanctuary that I realized that there's a whole other world of animals out there. Animals such as cows and goats and chickens and turkeys and ducks and donkeys, and the list goes on and on, who weren't that much different than the animals I'd grown up with as pets. For whatever reason, these animals were destined for something different. They were treated as food. They were treated as animals to be exploited and not to be taken care of and not to be loved. It wasn't until I got a chance to look into their eyes at Farm Sanctuary that I realized that these animals weren't very different from my dog. In fact, they weren't different at all. They were exactly the same. After that moment of realization, it's impossible for me to look at animals the same ever again. It was about 1 year ago that I made my first visit to Farm Sanctuary in Orland, California. It was kind of an unexpected visit. I was on my way back from Washington and just happened to have heard of Farm Sanctuary on a website and decided to check it out. I arrived there a little bit late, actually pretty late after all the tours had finished, but I had the opportunity to meet a very special animal that day. Her name was Coco, and she was a white goat who'd been recently rescued. When I first met Coco, it was pretty heartbreaking. To look at her, she was clearly underweight. She had clearly been neglected, and obviously she had been abused and treated poorly. No one had ever given Coco the dignity that she deserved. And yet when I looked at her eyes, and I saw the way she looked at me, I could see that there was something magical behind her eyes. Something very special. I've had the opportunity over the last year to watch Coco in recovery at Farm Sanctuary. To see her going from being very underweight with a horrific case of mastitis to being a much happier goat who's now living among the other goats that she considers to be her friends. It's been amazing for me to be part of the organization as a volunteer and to have the chance to see animals such as Coco getting that rehabilitation, but more importantly that love and dignity that honestly is not part of their lives in most instances. Since I first met Coco at Farm Sanctuary, I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of other animals as well. As a matter of fact, I've adopted more than my share, whether it's Coco or Melvin the goat or Whitaker the calf or Amalinda the turkey or Blossom the pig. And I have quite a large farm family at this point. And there's one thing that they all have in common. If you take the time to look in their eyes, you're going to see a living, thinking, compassionate animal who has the ability to understand their surroundings, the ability to experience pleasure, to experience pain, to experience fear, and to experience love. It's very difficult to spend much time at all with these animals and not come away with a very profound realization that there's a lot going on behind their eyes that we've never given them credit for. This is kind of bittersweet. Well, it's very nice to be able to make that connection. It's both profound for, I believe, the people who get to meet them as well as the animals themselves. It makes it all the more difficult to know that there's billions of animals in the U.S. alone who are not getting that type of treatment. Coco and her friends represent a very small percentage of the animals in the world, and most of them don't get this type of treatment. Most of them are raised from birth to basically be killed and used for human consumption in one way, shape, or form. It can be very difficult to look at this and not feel very overwhelmed by it. Myself, I have to take guidance from one of my favorite songs, which is by a band called Boy Sets Fire. It's a song called Handful of Redemption, and that's really what I see every time I go to the farm. I see a handful of redemption. And by reaching out to more and more people, and by putting my video on YouTube, I guess what I'm hoping for is that more and more people are going to start reaching out their hands for that handful of redemption. And as more and more hands start to latch onto that, the effect becomes bigger and bigger and more profound, and the amount of animals who get to avoid a life of suffering gets bigger. At the end of the day, I'm not unrealistic. I don't think that that the world is going to change overnight. But I hope that as people get the opportunity to experience these animals and to hear stories like this, it'll make you think differently. It'll make you do what I did, frankly, which is to look for ways to make the world around you a little bit different. And that's where I'm asking for your support in the Walk for Farm Animals 2010 as a sponsor for me and a way of providing funds, much needed funds, to Farm Sanctuary in order to continue their noble work. I really appreciate your time in watching this video, and I hope that the message is connected with you at some level or another. And I would love nothing more than to get a chance to meet you someday at the Orland Farm Sanctuary.